What is up, everybody? How are you doing today? My name's Michael.
And I am John.
This is John. John, how are you doing?
See, I waited this time.
I know.
I'm doing pretty good. Having a good Friday.
Well, that is great. I am very happy to hear that. I hope everybody is having a great Friday as well. Hope you're probably on your way to work or maybe on your way back from work.
Getting ready for that weekend.
About to crack that first beer. So, anyways, welcome to the Fantasy Tap. We are excited to be talking about our wide receiver rankings, our consensus wide receiver rankings today. It's going to be a great show.
It's going to be an absolutely wonderful one. I really like having all these rankings done and seeing where everyone's finishing for us. And then me and you being able to have the conversation on why someone's higher than where the other person has them.
Mm-hmm.
And what the heck are you thinking?
Yeah. So, anyways, today we just to touch on our beer of the day, we're going to be drinking the Salt Life Lager. It's from Salt Life Beverage Company out of Jacksonville, Florida. You may have heard of the Salt Life brand before. Is that a Salt Life shirt?
It is. It's not. This is a cheap knockoff. Got to keep it cheap. Ross.
Yeah. So that's what we're drinking on today. But before we get into the show, I just want to go over a quick show overview. We've got the news, and then we've got our top 12, 10 to 12, depending on, where we're at, consensus wide receivers. So let's get into it.
Yeah. First piece of news off the board is going back to our running backs, where Alvin Kamara was actually reported healthy and ready to handle the full workload.
Yay.
And that's coming from Pete Carmichael, who's the offensive coordinator for the Saints. So last year you saw him take a hit, especially after his week 8, week 9 injuries. And towards the end of the season, never really fully came back. So hopefully coming into the season, you're getting what you're expecting from Alvin Kamara.
Well, we're expecting that.
And that's actually what we've been expecting, and super hot on him. Great to hear. Makes me really comfortable having him as our number 3 running back.
Mm-hmm. I like him a lot this year. Obviously, he's very involved in the passing game. It's potentially Drew Brees' last year, so at least one more year, depending on maybe Jameis takes over next year. Maybe
there was a report that him and Taysom Hill were swapping in on the secondary roles, but that's to be expected. I mean, if you're not the first string quarterback, you're going to be getting your time into that second string run.
You ain't first, you're last.
Yeah, if you ain't first, you're last, especially as a quarterback in the NFL. Unless you're the, New England Patriots.
Yeah, then it could be anybody.
Everyone's a 1. Let's go, Brian.
Yeah. Brian Hoyer. Ooh. But anyways, let's move on. Zach Moss, scaring all the Singletary fans out there. He has been displaying, air quotations, pass catching ability in camp. And he's been excelling at it. So how do you take that, John?
Well, something that was to be expected from him was he was going to be coming in on the short goal line opportunities and the short yardage opportunities. And them coming out and saying that he's displaying some sort of pass catching ability, and this is a Bills beat writer, so you can only take it with so much. But if a rookie's coming in and displaying pass catching abilities, that means he's going to be getting on the field more. And if he's getting on the field more, eventually, if he's talented, which is why they took him, he's going to be getting more opportunities. So I like it. I'm not a Singletary supporter because of him. I thought Singletary was going to lose his touchdowns. But I like seeing Zach Moss come in here and then giving him some pass catching opportunities. Makes him a little more valuable, and he's someone you're going to be picking up late. Do you know his ADP?
His ADP is 47.7, so a little high for me. I don't trust it. We saw, obviously last year he was a rookie, but we saw Frank Gore take some touches away from him, especially at the beginning of the year. He was pretty hot pretty hot the last half of the year or so. Did have a pretty good back half of the season. But I'm still staying away from him. If they really trusted him, I think they would have gone out and signed, maybe some low-end vet or something like that instead of drafting another running back, who can take away those touches and get that receiving work. So Like I said, he's going around in half point leagues. He's going at the ADP of 47.7. Couple players he's going around: Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, Kerryon Johnson, David Johnson, T.Y. Hilton, Stephon Diggs. They're all in that, no particular order, all in that range. Personally, I'm going to take almost everybody. Not Kerryon. I wouldn't take Kerryon.
So just to clarify, you're saying you're fading away from Devin Singletary, not Zach Moss, correct?
Yeah, I'm fading away from.
Okay, yeah, because we were talking about the Zach Moss news. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm fading away from Singletary for sure, and this kind of solidifies
your fade. Agreed. But like I was saying, Zach Moss, someone's going right now, current ADP of 115. So you're looking to grab him in like the 11th, 10th round. So not really going to be risking too much by grabbing him, and he's someone who could turn out to have a huge potential and big opportunity in that offense.
Who's going around him right now?
Right now, actually, not that it matters. Current ADP, even though he's not technically on a board, is Damian Williams, but Latavius Murray, Alexander Madison are both going above him, 2 spots above him, and then you've got James White and Tariq Cohen after him. So at that point, you're kind of looking at either a backup or someone whose pass catching role could be large on a bad offense.
Personally, I'm going to take, at least James White. You said Alexander Madison as well?
Yeah, Alexander Madison's there.
I'm going to take him over Zach Moss as well. I think I'm really just fading away from the entire Buffalo Bills backfield. I'm not going to risk it. If I can get Zach Moss, a round or two later than where he's going, or I'm sorry, Devin Singletary a round or two later than he's going, I'll take him. Same with Zach Moss. But there's a few players around their ADPs, that I would take before them.
Yeah. Again, I personally like him, but it's going to be something as more of a risk at that point, just because it's going to be later in the draft. I think he's someone who you might really be interested in rostering him, just because he's going to have an upside in his touchdowns, and he's possibly going to have an upside in his pass catching. And I'd like to hope that I'd rather roster him just on that potential. I definitely am not taking Singletary at all. Even if he falls a round later to me, it might have to be 2 rounds late.
Looking at the running backs, about a round later, Mark Ingram's there. I'm leaning more towards Ingram than Singletary. So overall, in general, I'm going to be fading away from that backfield in general. But yeah. So you want to get into it?
Sorry. So next up on the board, we've got Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan. Sorry there. Kyle Shanahan's actually told Matt Barrows of The Athletic that he is not counting on Deebo Samuels to be ready to suit up for week 1. So it also went on to say that it didn't seem like he was against the idea, but that it didn't seem probable. So
kind of something I was expecting. Week 1, week 2, he's not going to be there. Maybe week 2, if he is in week 2, it's going to be at a limited capacity. Week 3, at that point, we'll kind of play it by ear. So he's scary for where he's going. Do you have his ADP in front of you? Or, I'm sorry, he does. He is going as the 53.6 ADP. I'm gonna stay away from him as well currently at this point, because we've talked about it in the past. The re-injury risk is very high, and the decline in production is also quite high. I believe it was like 50% or something like.
Oh, that was if they came back a week early from the finish, but it's something where you can definitely see a decline in their ability, especially to be running around. But
he's going around that Devin Singletary spot. There's a couple people: Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf. I'm taking all of those guys in front of him or before I take him, and a couple of those are right after him. So, he does have a tremendous upside, and that's why he is still being drafted, where he is. But I'm going to stay away from him with this injury, at least for this year in redraft.
Especially with the 49ers going and signing receivers left and right, looking for more receivers to add to the team.
No, well, another receiver got hurt.
Exactly.
So
so it doesn't seem like they're going to have any structure as far as who their targets are going to be going to other than George Kittle. So going to be a whole offense other than tight end, maybe some running backs that I'm going to be avoiding.
Yeah. So, anyways, Tyreek Hill, he tweaked his hamstring. Is that correct?
It's reported that he left practice early for a supposed hamstring injury, and that he's going to be day to day.
Does that give you the warm and fuzzies?
Oh, it scares me. I'm not drafting him at all anymore.
Oh, really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, I was about to say. Ooh.
No, it doesn't affect anything, especially him. It's just a hamstring injury. If you're someone who's ever been in a very competitive athletic thing, hamstrings get pulled, they get strained.
They linger.
They do.
They do linger.
But it's not something where I think it's going to affect you. You should think about that affecting his value at all, just because of the upside you have to him on a week-to-week basis. If he plays, he plays. So I'm still grabbing them.
Yeah, I mean, we're still like about a month out from the season, so I mean, I would still feel comfortable. Obviously, if your draft is in a couple weeks, monitor the situation, see what's happening, see when he comes back to practice, if he's coming back to practice fully. If it gets closer and closer to the season, at that point, maybe you do fade away from taking him where he's currently going. ADP 16.4, so about the fourth or fifth pick in the second round. So just keep an eye on it. It's nothing that's scaring me at this moment, but if it does continue to linger,
yeah.
What?
No, I'm just listening to you. Yeah, if it continues to linger, it's something you're just gonna want to pay attention to. The later your draft, the more information you'll have, the closer the season starts. So as you're getting close to your draft, make sure you check in on all your injury reports
on the show.
I was going to say, make sure you guys are paying attention to us, because we'll be letting you know when big names are going down, if it's anything serious or if it's something you even need to look out for. If small names are making big words for themselves, then we'll let you know before anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But as well as Tyreek Hill being out, Sammy Watkins hasn't been on the field since Sunday, and
he had a slight groin
injury. And so someone who's been a little older, has been dealing with some injury issues in himself throughout his career. He just took a restructured contract. I think this kind of makes me feel like I fade away more from Sammy Watkins than I would from Tyreek Hill on this news, especially with Mecole Hardman making his name for himself last year. So, I mean, not a huge Sammy fan this year anyways.
So, yeah, I know. I hear it. But let's get into our last piece of news, and that is Melvin Gordon. He was limited in practice after tweaking his shoulder. Was it his shoulder or his ribs?
His ribs.
After tweaking his ribs early on in Thursday's practice. He obviously, like we said last episode, he was dealing with the altitude adjustment or adjustment to the altitude. And now this, that's scary. I don't like that. With Phillip Lindsay there, he's obviously a capable running back. He's shown that the past 2 years. They brought in Melvin Gordon, not for depth, but to they're going to go more of a committee.
Share. Yeah, they're going to do more of a timeshare, more of a committee backfield. And the less you see Melvin Gordon on that practice field, the less I think we're actually going to see him in the game. He is coming to a new team, so he needs to learn the offense and learn how it flows and learn how to play with Drew Lock. And Philip Lindsay's been there a long time now. He's been there his entire career, and he's trying to make a name for himself and earn that starting role himself. So, again, pay attention to it.
Are you fading Melvin Gordon?
I've been fading Melvin Gordon. I've faded him far enough to where I'm comfortable picking him up as late as I have him. And simply, it's just a lack of opportunity that I see because I just don't see him getting that workload he was getting in San Diego or Los Angeles. But I just anytime you have a rib injury and a running back, you're going to want to pay attention to it. There's someone who's going to be getting hit.
Definitely. I mean, they're always going to. They're always going to be getting hit, like you said. I mean, that's why they're not getting paid. You know, that's why he held out, because you can draft another running back the next year who's going to produce just as much. So, but I mean, I'm fading him as well. He is currently going as the ADP of 31.9. So is a little too high for my taste. So I'm going to be fading him as well. But let's now get into our wide receiver rankings. You excited for this?
Yeah. Super excited.
So, John, who is our consensus number one? Surprise the people.
Scotty Miller, Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah. Is it really?
It is. He's going to be getting 178 receptions for 1,700. No, I'm just kidding. Number one wide receiver is actually going to be, especially in any type of PPR or half-point PPR league, it's going to be Michael Thomas. Last year, finished the wide receiver one, broke records for the most receptions in a season, and currently going in a half-point league as the wide receiver one, and being taken as early as the 4th, 5th pick, sometimes even a little earlier, depending on what type of league you're in. So for you to get him, you need to be either in a running back heavy league where people are grabbing them early, or you need to take them early. But what you can expect from him is nothing short of, with Drew Brees' offense, at least 100 receptions. I mean, he's done it every season except his rookie season, where he only got to play 7 of those games. But that number's only grown every year. And he had 149 last season and 1,725 yards. Any sort of decline on that, still going to give you top-tier numbers. There's no way, unless barring injury, that he falls outside of a top 5 receiver. And so you're just going to want to make sure you pick him up if you're deciding to take a receiver finally.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't, like you said, he hasn't finished below receiver 7. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's similar to a Christian McCaffrey pick as the number 1. You know, it's a no-brainer. But when do you pick him, though? That's the question. After what running back do you take? Are you willing to take Michael Thomas?
It depends. Personally, this year, unless I'm trying to do a later running back strategy, I'm grabbing a running back, up until Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook. So depending on how your league's going, 6th, 7th pick might grab Henry or Thomas. But realistically, if any point in the second round, if I'm drafting from the 11 and Michael Thomas falls to me at the 11th pick, I might let him up hoping that the guy next to me doesn't grab him. But I'm probably going to grab him and then finally grab my running back. So I would say like the 7th or 8th pick, and then maybe let him go by. Or then I wouldn't expect him to come to me any later.
I'd be comfortable taking him after Ezekiel Elliott, which is, I mean, it's pretty high. So it's the 5th pick. This year, the wide receivers are so deep that you can grab receivers later. But I think the production that he's going to put out, I wouldn't fault anybody for taking him after Ezekiel Elliott. So at that 5th pick or so.
No, unless it's the 1-1. There's really no wrong time to take him. It's really just how you want your team to be built. You're sacrificing, if you're able to grab him, you're sacrificing a top 5 running back, or they're already gone. So it's what your build for your team looks like. You're targeting Michael Thomas if you're taking him this year, and you're lucky if he falls to you. So if he's on the board when you're picking, and you're looking at anything other than a top 5 running back, I'm definitely grabbing him. There's no receiver you're going to take over him.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely, no, yeah. Like you said, no receiver over him, and depending on the state of your team or how you want your team to be built, you can take him at any point pretty much, barring the first 3 or 4 picks. So, but let's move on to our second wide receiver. And it's not very conventional. John doesn't like it.
No, you have him so hot.
We have him similar yardage.
I'll be fair. It's 2 spots higher than me. But you have him so high that it made him jump that way because he's only your second as well. I don't know.
So, anyways, Kenny Golladay, he's our consensus 2 pick. He is currently going ADP 24.9, wide receiver 7. So, I mean, personally for me, especially, that's the steal of the draft. Even in John's rankings, John has him as the wide receiver 4. That's still, a great value. If you can grab him as your wide receiver 1, you're going to be happy. So say at 24.9, you can grab Christian McCaffrey as well as Kenny Golladay. That's a total possibility if you have the 101.
It's possible. I wouldn't say it's super likely.
His ADP is 24.9.
There's so much hype around him. I don't see him falling all the way to the end of the second.
We're just going by the
ADP. No, ADP. But there's just any league that I'm in, people are generally have a good idea of fantasy football and know what they're doing. So he's obviously going to be in a great situation this year. That's why we both have him high.
Right.
So I see him, even if his ADP is saying he's going that low, people are reaching for him more than likely.
I don't know. Every league I've been in, he's been going at that between the 21 and the 27 spot, depending on the structure of the person's team. So, like I said, you could have him as your wide receiver 1 and CMC as your first running back.
And just to make your point stronger, it might not even be CMC. If you have an earlier pick, you could get up with any of the top 5 running backs with him. He's someone who you can target if you go running back first, and you should be able to get a great return on him. Definitely someone who's going to be getting a bunch of opportunity. He led the league with touchdowns last season, and that was only with Matt Stafford playing a small portion of it. So, at the very least, he's shown that he's a talented receiver. Some would argue elite. I wouldn't personally.
You have him at 4, John?
Fantasy football statistics does not yield fantasy or football talent.
I don't know. I'd say that's pretty elite.
It's opportunity. I've got him in for 132 targets next year, which is fairly good.
Yeah.
Along with his touchdown total, which is the only reason. And personally, I don't like having him where I have him, but the numbers fall where they do, and I don't have control. I have had control over it.
You do have control over that, John.
But I was just being unbiased and letting each person just turn out to where I really thought they would be without the name being in front of them. So, absolutely going to see a great investment, especially if he falls to you anywhere past in my opinion, the wide receiver 4. But if right now he's going at the 7, so you're going to be getting great value on him. Yep. If he falls to you there, grab him.
Yeah, last year, just to put these stats out there, he was on pace for 14 touchdowns, 124 targets last year, 70 receptions, and 1,280 yards during when Matt Stafford was there, the first 8 games. And one other thing that I liked was that Kenny Golladay had 4 100 or more yard games in the first 8 games compared to his 1 in the latter half of the season. So that does scare me, or that not scare me. I'm sorry. That does excite me, I guess, now that he's getting Stafford back. like John said, I'm very hot on him this year. I looked back until 2000, I believe I looked back all the way to 2000, and actually this past year was the lowest amount of receiving touchdowns by a touchdown leader. Most of them, there were 2 years with 12 touchdowns. The receiving leader had 12 touchdowns and or more, including Randy Moss's 23. That was crazy. I looked at that stat. I was like, oh, my God, 23 touchdowns? That nobody even got close to it in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
so.
no, that's not really.
But I do think with the return of Matt Stafford, that's why I have him for a couple more touchdowns than you do. And that entire offense.
You have him leading the league next year in touchdowns.
Yeah. At only 12, and there's been 2 years that have hit 12. Every other year before that has been 13 or more. So, I mean, I definitely think it's an attainable stat. If he leads the league, maybe, but I don't think 12 touchdowns is out of the picture for him.
No, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I just understand the fact that Matt Stafford was coming off of the best start to a season that he's ever seen in his life. And so to expect that to be what you're getting this year, especially coming back from an injury.
With a better offensive line.
With a better offensive line, a year older, coming off of an injury, had one great run of games. I don't think he's going to be that huge touchdown monster. I have him in for 10 touchdowns personally. So I think he's going to be getting a handful of them.
And that's why it's our consensus too.
But I just don't think he's going to be back. I don't think he's going to outperform his touchdown total of last season. I think he's going to outperform his yardage total of last season. I have him for both. I think he's going to be getting the ball more. I just don't think he's going to be getting as many red zone opportunities, especially with a competent quarterback back there. He's going to be getting the ball wherever's open, not just hoping that my guy's open or the guy I know to throw it to as a second string or third string quarterback who's getting my first chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyways, that is our consensus number 2, wide receiver. Let's move on to our number 3, and that is Tyreek Hill. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He did have the hamstring, unfortunately, today, but, like we said, just monitor that. He is going ADP 11.5, currently the wide receiver 5 off the board. 2019, he finished as the wide receiver 30. He didn't play every game, and that's why. And that's why he's so far. His upside is ridiculous. Pat Mahomes could throw for another 5,000 yards as well as 50 touchdowns this year. That's why they paid him $500,000.
$500 million.
I'm sorry. Yeah. We get paid $500,000 to do the show. He got paid $500 million. Yeah, B.
Still waiting on my check. But no, so last year you had Tyreek Hill only play 12 games and still finished with 7 touchdowns. He's averaging last year 14.83 yards per catch. The past 2 years before that, he broke 15 with 2018 getting 17 yards per catch on 137 targets and 87 receptions. So if you give him a full 16-game season, it's very, very, very likely he's challenging Michael Thomas for that one spot.
Good, definitely. He's got the talent.
He has the absolute talent, the speed,
opportunity,
and the team and the opportunity to do it. But personally, I have him in at my wide receiver 2, where I've got him in for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns, seeing 85 receptions. So on a full 16-game season, he's going to be right there with Michael Thomas, in my understanding, just kind of barely beating out the next guy. But you're going to be getting a great return on investment on him, especially with this hamstring news. If you're drafting soon, people might be fading from him, and he could fall right to you in a good spot.
Take him, scoop him up.
It's nothing you need to really worry about, and you're going to be happy grabbing him and knowing week in, week out, you've got someone who's going to be putting up points for you.
100%. I mean, the biggest thing is his offense. He's got the most opportunity in the league, or the best opportunity as a wide receiver. He's got the best quarterback, Andy Reid's there. They just got Clyde Edwards-Helaire to kind of open up the run game, and in turn, that will open up the passing offense a little bit more. Patrick did miss a couple games last year, but I think it's a no-brainer. At number 3, I would take him. I know, people are going to say, oh, well, Julio, Devontae Adams, stuff like that, but he is the clear number one wide receiver for his team. And he competes with Travis Kelce for, targets. He has the touchdown and big play upside. So I like that. I like that upside.
Yeah, he's someone who could take it to the house for 99 yards and wouldn't surprise you at all.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, well, here we go. Another Tyreek Hill touchdown. So, and then our number 4 consensus is DeAndre Hopkins going to a new team. The Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray getting to his second year. Obviously, DeAndre has performed with and without quarterbacks pretty much. Ryan Mallett and
Brock Osweiler.
Ryan Fitzpatrick whenever he was kind of on the – I know I'm
on
talking –
his decline.
Well, he's up and down. But
it's a wave.
He's performed whether there's been a quarterback there or not. I would say he's the only wide receiver that would put up numbers. If he was the quarterback, he'd throw the ball to himself. So he's never finished outside. He's only finished outside of the top outside of the top 12 3 times in his career. Let's see, a couple of those. One of those was his rookie year. And then 2016 he finished as the wide receiver 26, and that wasn't a great year. That was, I believe, the year before they got Deshaun. And then also in 2014, that was his second year, he finished as the wide receiver 14. So is he a lock in the top 5 for you this year, John? Because I know a lot of people are a little bit worried that Kyler won't live up to the expectation. There's other targets there in the offense. Do you think he's a lock for the top 5?
Top 5 lock? It's hard for me to say yes, but I want to. I think I have him ranked as my 3 right now, and I think I'm really comfortable having him there. But to say he's an absolute lock for that opportunity, I mean, I'm under the impression where he's going to be getting a great amount of targets from that offense and going to be taking a lot of it. Larry Fitzgerald, as amazing as he is, again, someone who's getting older, he's not going to be demanding as many targets from that offense. Christian Kirk is there, but that's not the scariest thing for him. DeAndre Hopkins has always ran in offenses where the other receivers haven't been elite, but they've still been relevant and usable and actually pretty good. I mean, you end up with Will Fuller last year. Kenny Stills was there last year. All people who Kenny Stills was
solid receivers.
I was going to say Kenny Stills was the Dolphins' number 1 while Devontae Parker was kind of trying to figure himself out. So
for 5 years.
So even with those additional receivers in there, I still think he's going to be getting his target share. And he actually ended up with one of his best finishes with only 163 targets, which is a good amount, but it wasn't his highest. I mean, in 2017, he had 174. In 2018, he had 163 and ended up as the PPR wide receiver 1, but that's on 115 catches. He's got the hands. He's talented enough. As long as he gets that share of the offense, he's going to be putting up numbers for you. And I think Kyler Murray is someone who respects good receivers. And so I think he's going to be like, this is someone I want to get the ball to because he's going to be making me look better once I get that ball in his hands because every yard he runs is a yard for me.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. He's a playmaker. He gets his touchdowns. I actually have him at 10 touchdowns this year. They don't really have a big. I mean, they have Dan Arnold, but he's not a dominant a red zone threat.
They didn't really throw to their tight ends either last season.
And I think that adding DeAndre, he's going to be their red zone threat, and that's why I have him getting 10 touchdowns. Like you said, they do have Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald. Obviously, Fitz is first-round ballot Hall of Famer. But he is on the decline of his career. We saw it last year. He did take that second role in Arizona, and I think he takes a step back again this year to let Christian Kirk to kind of take that step forward. But overall, I think that DeAndre is going to be Kyler's go-to anywhere on the field, not just in the red zone. And he's going to get the yards, he's going to get the targets, he's going to get the touchdowns, and that's why we have him at number 4.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Kyler Murray throwing the ball almost 560 times next year. I mean, I've got him getting rid of it a lot. And so that share needs to go somewhere, and it's going to be going to your best, most talented receiver. And I think DeAndre is going to be getting a huge portion of that, and at least 100 plus receptions next year.
For sure. So, anyways, our fifth overall wide receiver consensus is Julio Jones with a J.
What else would it be with?
I don't know.
A Q?
I'm just saying he's got two J's in his name.
JJ?
JJ.
They should have called him that.
Julio with a J.
They missed out.
He's going as ADP 15.8, wide receiver 4 off the board. So going a little bit earlier, 2019 finish, he finished as the wide receiver 3 in an offense that passes the ball a ton. It's not as well as probably one of the best wide receivers in the league. It's not, you're not surprised by it. He's getting a ton of targets, and I have him going at the wide receiver 6, so just a step off. But he's going to have a ton of opportunity there. Like we've been saying, the more opportunity, obviously, the better. And that's why we have him where we do. I have him going for 94 receptions for over 1,400 yards. So a ton of yards. And we always see that every year with Julio. If he can get those touchdowns, he could easily be the wide receiver 1 to 2. I mean, easily. It's just, can he get all the touchdowns he deserves? We've seen him not struggle, but we've seen Matt Ryan struggle getting him the ball in the end zone.
You'll see it happen. He won't get a touchdown for the longest,
and then he'll get a couple.
It comes in waves. It's crazy because if you actually look back, he hasn't, other than last season, and he only missed this number by 6 yards. Other than last season, he hasn't finished under 1,400 yards.
I know.
Since 2014. And the only thing, and he's been a top 7 in a PPR league fantasy receiver. And the only thing that happens on a bad year for him is he gets 6 touchdowns. He's either a 6 or 8 guy. Even in 2016, he only played 14 games and still got 6 touchdowns. 2017, he played all 16 and only got 3. So it's kind of a guesswork for him, but you're getting a consistent wide receiver yardage and receptions every single week.
Yep.
And with that, you're getting a really solid floor.
You know exactly where he's going to perform.
You know you're at the least, you're easily getting your 10 from him, 15 if he has the decent game, and 25 if he balls, if he gives you that touchdown. So it's going to give you a week in, week out. I can play him. I'm definitely rostering him. And if he gets another season, last year he got 157 targets. And the year before that, 170. So he's getting the ball thrown his way a lot.
203 in 2015.
I know, but that's so far away I wasn't going to bring it up.
That's hot, though. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So, I mean, we've seen it throughout his career. He doesn't get the touchdowns. However, he, like you said, there is such a solid floor there. He is such a force to be reckoned with in the wide receiver game, in the reception game, and it's easy. And when he gets those touchdowns, then you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of dessert, because
at that point you've already won your week.
Exactly, and that's just a little cherry on top, because he got a touchdown that week. I mean, he's only scored double-digit touchdowns one time in his career, but like you said, he's only gone under 1,400 reception or 1,400 yards twice. I mean, other than 2013, which he only played 5 games. So
yeah, take away give it to him last year. He was 6 yards off on 1,400, but it hasn't happened since 2014 that he's been under that. So you're expecting him to, even on a regression, still get you that 1,300 yard mark. And if he finds anywhere in between that halfway point on his touchdowns, between that 6 or 8, or even that 6. Hey, you're getting a great receiver.
And that's why we put him at wide receiver 5. So let's move on to Chris Godwin, kind of an interesting name. Obviously, they got Tom Brady. It's Tampa Bay. They've got a ton of mouths to feed. They got Gronk there. They've got Mike Evans. O.J. Howard's there. They just drafted Keyshawn Vaughn. The list goes on and on. But we currently have him as the 6th overall wide receiver consensus, and Right now, he's going ADP 21.5, wide receiver 6. Last year, he finished as the wide receiver 2.5 point league. He showed out last year. I mean, he broke out. Boom. Broke out.
And part of that comes on the back of Jameis Winston's just gunning it out and getting those 30 interceptions along with those touchdown totals. But he ranked first in yards after catch last season. He's 574 yards after catch. He was on the field 95% of the time. So he got his opportunities with 86 receptions. You see people with over 100 who don't even break those yards after catch. And he's such a big body and such a red zone threat, which is why you saw him end up with nine touchdowns last year.
Yep.
So it's someone who I'm assuming that Tom Brady's coming to Tampa Bay this year. He's looking for his weapons when he came here, and he understood those receivers that he's going to have. And I think he's going to find those safety blankets in Chris Godwin and Gronk when he's in, along with Mike Evans there as well. I think Chris Godwin's finally going to overshadow Mike Evans this year, not in the hugest amount, but just in a slight bit. That he's actually, I know Chris Godwin beat him in yardage, but Mike Evans didn't play all 16. I think Chris is going to be getting that larger share of the reception targets this year than Mike Evans is going to be getting, and I think that's also going to be coming in the red zone area. So I love Chris Godwin. Where he's going right now is perfect for me. They have him at the 6. I have him at the 6. It's great. Grab him.
One other thing I do like about Chris Godwin is his contested catch rate. He was targeted 25 times, 25 of his targets were contested, and he came down with 64% of those, and that was third in the league. So he's going up and getting the balls. He is, no matter if defender's on him or not, he's catching them. And that is what Brady likes. He likes a reliable receiver who can catch the ball. That's why Gronk was such a force in New England, because he knew Gronk was there. Obviously, Gronk's back. Do I think that Gronk's going to be Gronk this year? No. But could Chris Godwin be his safety blanket, similar to a Gronk or a Julian Edelman? 100%. I think that he could definitely be that guy. So that is why. I mean, anything you want to add? Or do you speak at all about him?
I just grab him if he's there. He's going to be a really consistent receiver for you. He only had 4 games last year where he didn't break the 10 mark, and if he didn't put up 13, he put up 30. So he's going to give you a good floor with a huge ceiling that could put up 41, especially with Tom Brady there with a reliable quarterback. You're just going to hopefully see even more work from him, maybe at not such an extreme level.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're not going to – I don't think they're going to sling the ball like they did last year, but he's definitely a great safety blanket for Tom Brady. But let's move on to our 7th – ooh, thunder. You hear that thunder?
I do. Welcome to Florida.
Yeah, so let's move on to our 7th overall wide receiver, and that is Davante Adams. Kind of low, I believe, for the fantasy community. A lot of people have him as the wide receiver 2, and that's where he's going ADP-wise. He's going as the ADP overall 11.2 and the wide receiver 2. People think that Aaron Rodgers and him are going to just link back up. He's got the talent. So I think that's why people are so hot on him. Personally, for me, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, I think that Aaron is going to take a step back. He hasn't been the Aaron of late in the past couple of years, but still, Davante could still be a productive wide receiver, and that's why we have him at 7. Last year, he did finish as the wide receiver 24. He didn't play all his games. He was dealing with injuries. So, John, what is your thought on Davante?
So personally, I think what just happens here is it's no knock on Davante Adams or even on Aaron Rodgers, who last year finished as the quarterback 9 in standard and PPR leagues, and 2018 finished as quarterback 6, with having a terrible receiving group. So let's not give a knock to Aaron Rodgers, who's coming off a bad year. He had a great year. He did very well. They just ran the ball a lot, and his touchdown stat was down. we'll talk about that later when we get to our quarterback rankings. But personally, I think Devontae Adams is in such a great opportunity where he's going to be getting the ball a lot. We both do have him in at our 7, so he is a real consensus 7 for us. Personally, I have him in for 100 receptions and 1,268 yards. What I don't have him for is breaking that 10 touchdown barrier, which seems to be helping these high receiving total receivers break into this top 5 area. I have him in for 8. Last year, he only had, I believe, 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I believe it was 5. But he did have a year where he had 13, which was back in 2018. So I know it's something he can do, but I think they did realize that they're a really good running offense as well, and they can run the ball down your throat, and they don't need to only pass the ball into the end zone. And so as I do see them stepping away or not getting as many opportunities where Aaron Jones is going to be running the ball into the end zone, and he might be getting the ball out there, I don't think it's enough to where it's going to push him up to that point. He does have the receptions, and in a pure PPR league, I might have him ranked a little bit higher. I actually have him ranked as the wide receiver 4. So not too bad. But I just don't think he's going to outperform in a half-point league the other players that we have above him. I don't think he's going to be getting those touchdowns, and that's really the only thing holding him back for me.
And like you said, that offense does have capable running backs. They just added A.J. Dillon, who they're showing off his quads and calves like crazy on Twitter. So definitely could be, three-headed monster with Jamal, Aaron, and AJ. So, I mean, they won't have to rely on the passing game as much, but still, for where you're getting him, I mean, I've seen plenty of drafts where he is falling much later. I've seen him drop into the back half of the second round. At that point, I'm going to take him all day, depending on, my roster situation. But if I'm going to take him in the first, am I going to take him in the first round? I don't think so. I think there's a few, couple other players. But if he drops to me in the beginning of the second, and if I'm on the turn or something like that, I would be very happy with having Devontae Adams as my first overall or number 1 wide receiver. So, and his upside's ridiculous. His upside is I mean, we saw it a couple years ago, wide receiver 2. So, but let's move on to our next wide receiver, and that is Adam Thielen. We've seen he can catch the ball. He's a great wide receiver. He is Kirk Cousins' safety blanket. They did lose Stephon Diggs. Last year, he finished as the wide receiver 61, but he did only play 10 games. Current ADP is 29.8. He is going as the wide receiver 11, which, I mean, obviously we have him as the consensus 8, so he can outperform that, or we think he can. So, but like I said, he's gonna get those, he is Kirk Cousins' safety blanket. He's going to get those targets. He's going to get those yards, especially with Stephon Diggs gone. They did add Justin Jefferson, and they are a very run-heavy team. But, I mean, he's their obvious and clear wide receiver 1.
The quarterback's going to throw the ball regardless, especially in the NFC. They need to get the ball out. And so you only need – I mean, he showed with 155 targets in 16 games back in 2018 that he can finish as a wide receiver 7. He gets around – somewhere between that 8.5 to 10 yards per catch mark, which is fairly consistent. Yeah. But he also gets the ball a lot. I mean, back in 2018, he got 155 targets. Back in 2017, he got 143, catching 91 and 113 receptions, as well as 4 to 9 touchdowns. So he can be a little all over the board in the touchdown aspect.
But he's going to get those receptions.
But he's going to be getting them this year, and he's not in competition like he has been the past 2 years. 4 targets. As much as Stephon Diggs complained he wasn't getting the ball last year.
He's gone.
He's gone now, but Stephon still got the ball a lot. He got over 100 targets.
Yep.
And you should be seeing Adam Thielen balling out this year with Justin Jefferson getting enough.
Yeah, he should. I mean, and he will. I do believe. Wide receiver 11, he'll outperform that personally, I think. And 29.8, I'd love to have him if I could take 2 running backs and then grab Adam Thielen, I will. So let's move on to Amari Cooper, and he is our 9th overall, currently going ADP 34.3, wide receiver 9, and last year he coincidentally finished as the wide receiver 9. Great offense, a very high-powered, explosive offense. They did lose their center. We've talked about it before, but they did lose their center this year. They did draft a center to replace him, hopefully, Tyler Biadasz, but I don't have Dak throwing for the amount of yards he did at just over 4,900. I have him at 4,700. But I think that Amari Cooper's number one wide receiver in that offense is cemented. So I think he's going to get the opportunity. He's going to get the targets, and he'll in turn get the touchdowns and finish around that wide receiver 9 rank.
Personally, I'm a little lower on him. I do think that the spreading of the ball in Dallas is going to be a little more all over the place. I think that Michael Gallup's going to be getting a little more targets this year, even though Amari did just get paid. But I think Amari Cooper is someone who's shown that he's the number one receiver in Dallas. He can be a touchdown monster. He can be a yardage monster. Just that aspect of when you're picking him up, you're going to be questioning, and something he's shown his entire career is that week in, week out, boom or bust. And with them adding a third top-end receiver on their team this year, it's going to be, well, did he get the targets this week? Did he get the targets this week? And so I personally have him in at my 15, but I don't think the distance in between him is pretty close altogether, so it only takes a few yards or touchdown to move up a spot or two. So I do think he's someone who you can, at the end of the year, rely on, and he's going to get you some weeks where he and himself is going to win you your week. Mm-hmm. And if you have someone else on your team who's a lot more consistent and you have that spot where you're able to fly him, I'm extremely happy with Amari Cooper as my second wide receiver, and I'm not sad with him at my wide receiver 1.
It's just can you
I'm looking
go
for
with the ups and downs?
I'm looking for someone who's extremely consistent at my 2 at that point.
Exactly, and that's the one thing about Amari, like you said, is his ups and downs. Is that's what you're going to be putting up with all year. He's going to get those games that he breaks out and he wins you a week, and then he's going to have those games where it may lose you a week. So, personally, I'll take the upside, but it will hurt. During those weeks where he does or has the bad games. So let's get into our final wide receiver for this episode. That's our 10th overall consensus, and that's Allen Robinson. He's shown he can be a dominant force, on the Jags as well as in Chicago. He's currently ADP 38.9, wide receiver 14, and last year he finished as the wide receiver 11. John, for where he's going, are you going to take him? Would you be happy with him as your wide receiver 1?
Yeah, actually, I mean, we have him ranked as the 10 consensusly. I've actually got him in for the 9, so I'm extremely happy with him at my 1 spot. Even with that lackluster quarterback room and the questionable quarterback situation that's going on there, he's someone who dealt with Mitch Trubisky and Chase Daniels last year and still saw almost week in, week out consistency, only having 3 games where he fell below the 10-point mark, and then having a handful where he's at the 17 to 20 points. So you're going to be getting someone who you can feel comfortable playing week in, week out as your wide receiver 1, and you're not going to be upset. It's going to be someone who, if I had to stack my wide receivers and I got Amari Cooper and Allen Robinson, I honestly feel like I'm pretty set. Like if I have to grab them at a turn or close to a turn, I've got the floor of Amari or the floor of Robinson, and then the ceiling of Amari.
Yep.
And even if Amari gives me a mediocre game, I just got a wide receiver 1.
For sure. And like you said, the quarterback room really doesn't scare me. I mean, he played with Mitch Trubisky last year, and he performed. I'm wide receiver 9, so
11 and a half point. He was 8 and
PPR.
And PPR, and I believe it was
12 in standard.
12 in standard.
So I mean, he's got that floor, like you said. He finished as a wide receiver 1 across all platforms last year. So I mean, I would personally, I have him at the 11. So I would still take him as my wide receiver 1. I can stack up on those running backs early on, 2 to 3, depending on where I'm drafting at. And I mean, I'd be pretty happy with taking him. So I'm not gonna complain if he's my wide receiver 1. He'll give me that floor, like you said. He will have those games where he does perform a little bit better, but I have a solid floor wide receiver 1. And later on in the draft, I can take a Marquise Brown, somebody like that, who will give me those up and down weeks. But in those up weeks, I'll be winning and
comfortable.
Yeah. So, but anyways, those are our top 10 consensus wide receivers for 2020. An interesting bunch, especially for where they're placed. But let's get into our beer of the day. Ooh, I love that. I love that sound. So we are drinking the Salt Life Lager out of Jacksonville, Florida. It is brewed by the Salt Life Beverage Company. If you're not from Florida or that the southeastern region, Salt Life is a clothing company, a fishing-ish company, right? You would say
it's a brand.
Yeah, it's a brand that they but you'll see Salt Life everywhere if you're in Florida. So they do have. They did start to or want to brew a beer that is great for the beach, the boat, stuff like that. Those outdoor tropical feels, and that's kind of the vibe you get when you're drinking this. It does have their logo, a diving flag on it with a little skull in the top right corner. Pretty dope. And it says Salt Life, and then underneath it says lager. The entire can's white. With the black rim around it. And then at the top, it does say salty state of mind, giving you that Salt Life feel.
According to them, the flavor, as written on the can, is crisp, clean, and refreshing. Personally, it's okay beer. It's
not great.
It's not great. It's not bad, though. It's drinkable. Nothing to brag about. But it's nothing to complain about either. It is a 4.5 ABV with 17 IBU, which is a little surprising because for that low, it's not that it's bitter. It's just not bitter. It does have a little bit of that hoppy aftertaste. And as far as the aroma goes,
I got bananas.
You got bananas?
Yeah. Which is weird because I was sitting on the video. You start if you watch it back, I was sitting there sniffing the can for a second, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna look crazy," but I get a little banana at the end. It's kind of weird.
I can kind of get it. I can see where you're coming from with it, but nothing really spectacular about the smell either.
No, I mean it's a beer.
Hey, obviously we're not getting sponsored by this one, so.
We're gonna tell you how it is, pretty much.
We're gonna be absolutely honest with you guys. This is a pretty just beery, generic-y beer.
John mentioned Budweiser, and that's kind of the vibe I get.
Yeah, kind of the vibe I was getting was that this was gonna be just a product placement Budweiser, and it's got a little more of a beer flavor. It's not watery. It's not it's not just the water and alcohol. It's got a beer flavor. It's not terrible, just not great for anyone who's actually looking for a unique flavor in their beer. You're just getting more of your local tap rooms.
Yeah. So on their website, if you go to saltlifebeer.com, you can look up the lager. They're inspired by those who live the waterman's lifestyle. So on the water, fishing, diving, on the water and at the beach. And it is, like John said, an American lager. And they said it's the perfect lager for the bar, beer, beach, or boat.
It's you know what? If you're from a rich neighborhood and you're on your daddy's boat, this is a great beer to have because everyone's gonna love you. Oh, that's Salt Life beer.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's a brand.
And that's what they're putting out there.
Hey, that's what they're going for. And again, the beer's not bad. There's nothing wrong with the beer. There's just nothing that stands out and makes it different or special to me or even craft.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's plain Jane. So what would you give the score, John?
This goes out of 10, right?
Out of 10, yes.
I'm going a flat 5.0.
5.0.
Again, not bad.
Well, no, that's pretty bad.
It's not, again, it's not bad, but it's not good. A 5.0, it's in the middle.
In the middle? I would give it a 6.1. I mean, I would drink it if it's there. I'm gonna drink it, and if I'm on a boat, whatever, fishing, and there's a 12-pack sitting there, and we can dig into them, I will. But I'm definitely not going. No offense, Salt Life. I'm not gonna go looking for this beer.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't have to try it again.
John's pretty low on it.
Not happy. Send me something you guys actually like.
Yeah, we need that. We need them to send us something.
Yeah, anyone that's listening, please, if you can go out of your way just right now while you're listening. If you're driving on the highway, make sure you pull over really quick.
Just write down a beer that, you know what, Michael and John should try, and we'll go find it. I mean,
even if it's just a name and a make, you tell us who makes it, we'll find the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
But just stop for 2 seconds and take the time to actually put that in there. And when you do, add a little bit of your fantasy football questions or advice in that too. And then send them over to actually the Fantasy Tap on our Instagram and our Twitter. And then if you want to send it an email, it's going to be thefantasytap@gmail.com. Thank you guys again for tuning in. It was great to have you.
You guys have been amazing. We love you guys listening, and we look forward to getting your fantasy football questions as well as some of your beer recommendations. We will see you guys for the next episode of our Consensus Wide Receivers. We love you.
Have a great night.